Missing turns to murder. On the night of January 31st, 2019, a man chose to abuse a vulnerable girl's state to his own advantage and coerced her into the back of his car, and she was never seen again. Hi, welcome back to my channel. This week we'll be covering Libby Squire, which was a well-known case in the UK in 2019. However, the further developments didn't happen until about 2021, pre-pandemic. So let's give it a go. Our case takes us again to the UK in Hull. Libby Squire was a 21-year-old girl who lived in High Wycombe, Buckinghamshire, with her mum Lisa and her dad Russell. She was known as being a hard-working, kind, and just overall lovely person, and she was described as having a nickname of Pie by her mum Lisa, which I was unsure why, but I thought it was quite sweet and shows that she was a lovely person.
Libby, my darling Pie, we just want to know that you're safe. Please get in touch with us any way you can. The whole family is missing you, especially me and your dad, your sisters and your brother. I miss you so much. It's breaking my heart not knowing where you are.
Her mum, even after her passing, would speak about her with the utmost admiration and just talk about how truly hardworking and caring she was.
Libby will always be with us, and we are all so proud of our beautiful, caring, wonderful girl. And although she has been physically taken from us, the memories we have and the love we share will never be taken.
In September 2018, Libby decided to return to university, which was the University of Hull, which she studied her undergraduate degree in philosophy. And much like a lot of students on that night, she was going to go out with her friends to a club in the area. So on the night it started like most students do. They have their pre-drinks and they have drinks, so it's a cheaper night out and more enjoyable when you get to the club, because I know clubs are quite gross environments. Like being a student 4 years ago myself, it's completely relatable where you drink as much as you can before you go out because it's a cheaper night and you enjoy it more because it's a bit hazy and just enjoyable. So much like us, as we did years ago, Libby and her friends chose to do the same. They had pre-drinks at their house and they consumed quite a lot of alcohol, and then they decided to go out. They headed to a club named the Welly in Hull, which was a hotspot for students in the area where they'd frequently go for club nights, student nights, and every themed event under the sun. Like most university cities do. So the Welly, much like other clubs in the UK, have a duty of care to who enters their premises and who's already in their premises. Also assess you based on your body language, the way you speak, to see how intoxicated and whether you can come into the club and it's safe for you and it's safe for everyone around you. In this case, Libby was not fit to enter, so she was refused entry because she was too drunk. In my experience, when a friend is refused entry, you tend to analyse the situation, decide whether you're going to go home or you're going to split up, or you'll see what the best situation is, because you never want to leave someone on their own. In this case, Libby's friends decided they're still going to continue with their night on. However, they're going to put Libby in a taxi first and see her off and make sure she got in a taxi and was on her way home safely. And they did what most friends do. You tend to text them and be like, oh, I'm home safe, don't worry, like I'm fine. And in this case, a few hours later, Libby's friends hadn't received a text, phone call, nothing. So there was concern on that element. So one of the girls named Amelia, one of her housemates / friends, decided to text their other housemate Eden and just ask if Libby had made it home and if she was in bed, if she was okay. A response to this was she wasn't home, which made the group of friends very concerned and worried. So the group of friends arrived home at 2 a.m. and realised she's not home, so they decided to search the area around their house in the local area, and it wasn't like her to not respond or for her not to be at home, so they were concerned.
It's totally out of character.
Obviously, when people go out and they drink, sometimes you lose your phone or you can't get home quite as easy, but she's always made sure that she's found a phone or anyone she can contact to make sure someone knows she's safe. regardless of what happened. So to not hear anything from her at all is completely not like her.
At 2:21 a.m, they decided to call the police and report her missing. The police decided to dispatch 70 officers to search the area because of how vulnerable she would be in that situation, and it's out of character for her to disappear anyway. As well as 70 officers being assigned to this case, there was also 200 students of the University of Hull helped search for her. Police immediately pled the public to check in their gardens, check in their sheds, because it's known if you're drunk you search for shelter, and it was a very cold evening that night. So in their best interest, they asked the public to check the gardens just in case she looked for shelter and just fell asleep because she was drunk.
We did discover her mobile phone, which despite analysis has not provided any further insight as to where she may be or her movements that night. Whilst her location is not yet known, this does not mean she has come to harm, but we must carry out a thorough investigation and explore all possibilities.
It wasn't until CCTV from the taxi driver who dropped her off home was checked where they noticed that she did get in home safely and she'd arrived safely at 11:29 p.m. However, when they then checked the local area CCTV on Beverley Road, they noticed at 11:39 p.m. she was seen walking down the pavement. However, she stumbled and fell over at one point, to which two local people who lived in the area picked her up and helped her onto the nearest bench, which was near a wall along Beverley Road. They sat with her for about 10 minutes and then she decided, no, be on your way, and then left them. At 11:57 p.m, the CCTV captures a man walking past Libby. Police initially couldn't identify who this man was and they weren't sure why he would have been of interest until the CCTV showed further that he crossed the road and then followed back to where she was. However, they also checked the CCTV along the shops in the area and they later were able to identify the suspect as Pavel Relowich. Pavel was already known to police for multiple offences, which, like our previous case, seems to be a very common occurrence at this point. Pavel Relowich was a 24-year-old man who was Polish. He grew up near Warsaw in Poland, but he ended up moving to the UK in 2012. Relowich was known originally to be a hard-working family man. He was married and had 2 children and worked in a butcher's in Hull. Relowich, over the span of December 2017 to January 2014, had been accused of multiple offences by several witnesses of voyeurism, public indecency and 3 counts of burglary. He was also known to the university and in the university area that he was known for targeting young female students by staring at them in their windows when they were changing, or just generally staring in the windows, and on occasion he would break in and steal their underwear and sex toys. What? Why did this happen again? Why is this not taken seriously? This is him targeting female women. Why wasn't this followed up or had harder measures for this act of indecency? So going back to our timeline, at 11:59 he is seen walking past Libby, as I said, by the bench where she was sat. But once he passes, she got up and she starts walking down the road. She is then seen walking back down Beverley Road, swaying and stumbling, most likely because she was intoxicated, and when you're drunk, you don't know how to walk sometimes. Relowich then notices her and starts walking on the opposite side of the road, quite adjacent to her, and then 30 seconds later he crosses within her pathway and intercepts her. Both then disappear off on CCTV into the grounds of a former nunnery. However, at 12 a.m, a minute later from them disappearing, they appear back onto Beverley Road. They walk up it and then walk back down it to the point where they disappeared. By this point, it was 12:02 a.m. where they were back at the entrance. In more CCTV footage, it was captured that Relowich was parked around the corner where a apartment block, by the looks of it, or construction site had captured him, sat in the front seat of his car with his legs hanging out on his phone. It wasn't until a passerby in a car, you can see in the headlights and CCTV, drives past, to which he gets up, closes the car door, then walks back round to Libby where she was sat on the bench. It is then seen a couple minutes later, Libby is stepping into the passenger side of the vehicle, to which at 12:08 a.m. Relowich drives off, and this is the last piece of footage that is ever seen of Libby Squire alive again. It wasn't until February 7th, 2019 where Relowich is arrested on suspicion of abduction of Libby. At this point, the police decide to seize his vehicle to look for more evidence and see if they can connect him to Libby with more solid evidence. They discovered a pink duffel bag which had 2 masks and was full of sex toys, which, from what we talked about his past, it seems as if these items were linked to students in the area and he had stolen them. It wasn't until March 20th, 2019 at 3 p.m. a body was discovered in the Humber River in Hull. This body was then transferred to the morgue, in which it was later to be identified as Libby Squire. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of hunting and searching for their daughter Libby. Her mum and dad put out an appeal early on in the investigation, which was very heartfelt and very heartbreaking as well, because they were asking for help within the public and they were asking her to come home, to which Relowich knew she wasn't coming home, and it's sad that it came to this ending.
Libby is our kind, thoughtful, beautiful girl who is loved by so many people. Please come forward with any information you may have, no matter how small or irrelevant it may be. We just want Libby home.
This caused absolute outrage in the community. Flowers were left by the bench she was last seen at, and a vigil was held at Hull's Minster, and tributes were scattered all across Hull University. When her autopsy results came back, it was shown that her cause of death was unknown. This was due to how long she had been in the water for 6 weeks. However, they couldn't rule out asphyxia, and there were many bruises along her abdomen, her chest and her thighs. Alongside this, her toxicology results came back in, and it was stated that there were no drugs in her system. However, her alcohol levels were double and a bit the legal drink driving range. When this was released, police pushed this investigation as it was declared a homicide, meaning a fresh case against Pavel Relowich was opened and they gathered more evidence to build a case against him. A witness came forward during this time to state that their home overlooked Oak Road playing fields, which was about 10 minutes away from where Libby was last seen. And on the night of the January 31st, 2019, they were woken up just after midnight from hearing screams coming from the playing field. Police then began to build a rock-solid timeline against Relowich, and every piece of evidence was coming together to point the blame at him. On the night of Libby's abduction at 9 p.m, Relowich was seen on further CCTV filling up his vehicle. He's then seen checking out the playing fields, I assume to see if there was anyone about, to see if he would get caught in the act of what he was about to do. He was then seen roaming the streets, trying to find someone innocent and vulnerable enough to get into his car or to take advantage of. So he was on a hunt like our previous case, Wayne Cousins. At 12:11 a.m, after taking Libby, it was then known they arrived at the fields, and then at 12:14 a.m, he sexually assaulted her, choked her until she passed out. This is when at 12:23 a.m, he fled the scene, leaving her body where she most likely got hypothermia. He then returned home to have a bath to warm himself up, despite what he'd just done. At 12:25 a.m, he returned back to the scene, to which he dumped her body in the River Hull, which leads down to the River Humber, where she was found 6 weeks later. And it doesn't end there. Annoyingly, our story should end there, and there shouldn't be any more things added to it. However, he was then seen at 12:51 a.m, masturbating by 2 witnesses on Newlands Avenue. It wasn't until the 24th of October where he was officially charged for the abduction, rape and murder of Libby Squire. The trial began in January 2021, and on February the 11th, 2021, he was then found guilty of his crimes. He was sentenced to a minimum of 27 years in prison and wouldn't be eligible for parole until 2048. This caused absolute outrage with Libby's family, friends and everyone who knew her. The fact he was even considered for parole after what he had done and his past convictions. But Libby's mum, Lisa, was an absolute rock after her passing. She met up with Boris Johnson, the UK's Prime Minister, to discuss tougher measures for repeat offenders, because he should have been caught. He should have had a longer sentence for all his past convictions and allegations that were set upon him. She came away from the meeting saying that she was optimistic, she was happy, and that Boris promised to look more into these restrictions and into these tougher measures. She also links it back to the Sarah Everard case, which happened in 2021, to which she didn't understand why a policeman got a life order. However, he did a similar crime to what happened in 2021, but only got 27 years, but with parole. So I'll end this video with what Lisa Squire, Libby's mum, has said, and it's more powerful than anything I could say, because she's had her daughter pass away and she's taken that and is trying to do good for women. So she said, I want her legacy to be a change for women because of what happened to her. I want other women to be safer, and I will honour her until I take my last breath and make sure she's not forgotten. So that was the case of Libby Squire and the unfortunate loss of a life who shouldn't have been taken so soon, who had such a long future ahead of her, had so much going for her, and she should have been allowed to live her life and do what she wanted to do. So that's all from me. So stay safe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.